Hey everyone, welcome to Ink Scribes, the comics podcast where we discuss the art and craft of comics. I'm Colin Singh, an aspiring artist and lifelong student of the craft. I'm joined by my co-host Eric Zawadzki, the artist on Assorted Crisis Events, coming now from Image Comics, and Taylor Stauft, creator of the forthcoming Luke Zenith's Wedding Day, as part of the anthology Faster Than Light, Volume 2. The pre-launch Kickstarter is in the link in the description below.
So in this episode, we're covering year one of Image Comics, specifically all the first issues from the founders. So this is the best comic company in existence, in my humble opinion.
No.
Even if some of these comics are a little flawed in some ways, I have a soft spot for them because all the creators paved the way. Every one of these creators that we're going to talk about helped make the industry better for all comic creators.
Yeah.
And that buys a lot of leeway in my book. But I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir here with you guys.
Oh yeah, unanimous decision. Image Comics is the best comics company in existence.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well.
They talk
I
the
don't want to
talk
say
and walk the
yeah,
walk.
and I don't want to say that like half my collection is Image Comics, but probably a good third. I think just the way it runs now and sales wise too, Marvel, DC, Image. I think just an overall third of my collection is Image Comics.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all the stuff I buy nowadays.
I came
Yeah.
to Image late, but I can't deny, like, man, pound for pound, what they produce is always, at the very least, more interesting than the big two, and most often transcends what the big two produce.
Eric, so 1992, we were both 9, right? So where were you at? Like, what were you doing when this
I was not a day one guy.
no?
I didn't come into Image until probably year 3, maybe late year 2.
95, 96?
Yeah, I was a big Wildstorm guy. I mean, I was a Jim Lee kid. I was everything Jim Lee. So I was big on X-Men and Wildcats. And I probably actually showed up during the Travis Charest years of Wildcats. But I went back and like rebought all that older stuff. But I was not there on the ground floor. But you were.
Yeah, well, I mean, comics kind of like are in my blood, and my dad read comics, my cousins read comics, my uncles read comics, all on my dad's side of the family read comics, right? So I
Oh,
grew
that'd
up
be nice.
obviously, yeah. So but I would say that Image Comics, specifically, like I still remember my dad talking to my cousins about the Image line coming out. And Wildcats #1 had just come out. They were talking about Jim Lee's art in Wildcats and comparing it to X-Men. And I remember those conversations and stuff. And that's kind of what was in my head. It's like the names, the 7 creators who launched Image Comics were the first 7 creators that I actually invested in and actually got to know more. So they were the first names that I actually started to care about and follow. Like before Kirby, before all that stuff, it was the Image guys. I was obsessed with Rob Liefeld. I was obsessed with Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri. Like those 4 specifically were like my my first idols in comics.
Who was your number one though?
Of them,
Yeah.
well, it comes down to a lot of different things. Like, I love Todd McFarlane. Like, I still think Todd McFarlane should be like the next Stan Lee for comics as an overall like comics spokesperson.
Yeah.
Since
Ambassador.
Stan, he's ambassador exactly. But like art wise, skill wise, I would say Mark Silvestri is the one that I'll buy anything he does. And I've spent so much money on Mark Silvestri comics, and I still have to. Like, if you take Batman and Joker, for example, I'm anyone who's like follows a specific creator, they'll buy the floppies, they'll buy the hardcovers, the trades, the artist editions, the black and white editions. It's a good $500 or $600 that are going to be spent on that one book in the future, because they have yet to do any of those things for that one. And that's his latest thing, right? It's probably the best thing he's ever done. So,
So
yeah.
so Cyberforce was your favorite of all the comics then?
No, Spawn. So Spawn was my favorite comic, and
Right on. Okay.
I followed the Spawn universe. I bought, but dude, with Image Comics, I bought all the comics. I bought all the action figures. You know, all the trading cards. You know, Spawn had those long, oversized trading cards. You know, there was a bitch to find the sleeves for those. But Image Comics was just my overall, and that's like in terms of like overall comic events and everything. This was a shared universe. They all like at least mention each other in the first issue of I think all the comics. Youngblood at least is mentioned in every
Yeah.
issue of all across all comics, except for Wetworks, I think. But the lore and the just the overall, I was invested in all of it, and I loved how it all connected and stuff, and I really wanted it to go somewhere. You know, but years later, of course, Wildstorm got phased out, and all kinds of stuff happens, right? Like Liefeld left Image Comics as well for a period of time. You know, Jim Lee and Liefeld went on to Marvel, like so on and so forth. So, but I was like, I just when I got Youngblood #1, I just immediately thought I was going to buy it forever. And
For a 9-year-old boy,
Spawn,
man.
Savage Dragon. I was just gonna. These are my characters forever now. I'm just gonna buy
Yeah.
these comics. But you know, you get older, your tastes change and whatnot. But my first overall obsession, like had to have it, was Image Comics. I had to have everything, and also it was on the ground floor thing, because before
Yeah.
this, you know, all you guys, we had like you know a few issues of X-Men, a few issues of Spider-Man, but nothing like concrete #1, the ground floor. Image Comics was the first ground floor comic movement in modern history. I would say, like, yeah, for the millennial generation, like this was the first major comics movement for anyone in that age, like 9 years old. 9 years old, you know,
So would you were reading every single Image comic as it was coming out?
as it was coming, because my parents, or well, my dad was buying it, and my cousins were buying them too, right? And we were all
You
invested. We were
lucky
watching the
SOB.
Yeah.
watching the cartoons and everything. Yeah, we were
The
tracking
one
all of it.
and only
So
Wildcats.
So Youngblood #1. This sold 1.5 million copies. It
this
came out.
baby right here.
I see. You know, I tried to find the dates on when these came out, and a lot of these I found multiple dates. So this either came out April 1st or 16th, 1992.
Okay.
Uh, have you guys seen the original art to this cover? Because yeah, they're it's out there. They're releasing like a vault edition, which is Image's version of artist editions. So they solicited the image, and it's fascinating to look at because it looks like Liefeld used a paste up or a screen tone to create most of the speed lines,
Let
but
me see
it
that.
doesn't take up the whole page. So he had to
Oh.
continue the lines in the inks on the sides
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
they're kind of
and
offset
also at
as a
the
result.
bottom.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look at the lines on the lower edges, they seem to be a little more thrown down. They're not as perfect,
Oh yeah. They're
and
crossing
they don't really
over.
correspond to like a vanishing point.
Nope. No, no,
No.
no, no, no. The vanishing points are not for Rob Liefeld.
But
He is emotion
Energy.
over. Yeah, he's
but
emotion
isn't
energy.
that could be smoke or something behind, you know, that kind of effect that he has sometimes. He's just got a couple of plumes of smoke
Oh,
behind a
I'm not talking
character.
about that. I'm talking about the lines on the towards the lower the lines that are part of the speed lines.
Oh,
They're
the
they're
hand
more
drawn in majesty lines that
yeah, they're thrown
yeah.
down, and you see where the if you look up close, you see the pen kind of when he gets to the end of the line, it kind of like
Yeah, and
gets
like
a little
little
jagged.
Yeah,
jets. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do see
But
that.
the
I'm looking
lesson
at it
to
on my
learn
phone.
here is that we didn't notice this when until I
No,
pointed
you're
it out just now. So it doesn't matter. Nobody notices this stuff. Uh, if it's imperfect, it's fine.
right.
But it is still really cool to see the original art for it. And I mean, it looks like over time, um, there was also maybe a screen tone on Badrock, and over time it's yellowed,
It kind
and
of looks
also
like it,
on
yeah.
the ground.
Yeah. The ground one still comes through kind of like mottling. But yeah, Badrock has something going on.
Yeah, it's very cool to see.
All right. So the version I got had the Vogue trading card.
Hell yeah.
Oh, so different copies of Youngblood #1 would have different cards.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
speculating.
I think they all had the same card. This
So
is
like
my understanding,
the
and there's
first six
shaft in the
issues,
back.
shaft at the
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
yeah. I
Oh
think they
yeah,
all had
that is
shaft and
right.
Vogue.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should say this is a flip book. There's the
Yeah.
home
It's
team and
also
the
yeah.
away team.
So is it a two 14-page stories or 12? Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'm
let's
not
start.
sure.
Let's flip back to
With the home team,
the home
because this is
team.
one.
Yeah.
This is the one that everybody knows.
Yeah.
I mean, this cover's iconic, right? This
Sure.
is
Yeah.
Yeah.
so uh,
That's good.
all the founders comics that we're going to look at today, they all start off as it's so the origin of them is they're all either childhood creations from the creators or reworked rejected pitches.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So this Youngblood comic is a it was originally a Teen Titans pitch.
Which
Uh,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Did it
Shaft was
not?
intended to be speedy. Vogue was like a new Harley Quinn design. You know, he had a couple of Kundun warriors, and yeah, Die Hard was like a Star Labs android.
Huh.
Didn't he
Okay.
repurpose the team into a book called The Exterminators, which kind of kicked off this whole thing? That kind of because
Well,
Marvel editors had called him to not do that book. He was going to do the book, but it was called Exterminators at the time.
yeah, he
And I think
solicited it and then got a
yeah,
phone call.
he got solicited. He solicited it and got a call from Tom DeFalco or Bob Harris, one of those guys, one of the higher Marvel editors, and they said you can't do this, and he
Yeah.
pretty much says the fuck I won't, and started the whole thing right. So
But
yeah, like
actually, Youngblood did originally appear in Ram #1 in May 1987, and then like a month later in a Megaton Explosion #1 one shot. So I don't know. It's got like multiple sort of origin stories.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a good example of just get your shit out there. Like even if you're one of the highest paid, sought after artists, like just get that idea out there.
Oh, and he was just at his most creative peak at that point. Like he was just pumping out ideas. He was an idea factory.
He really is.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh, what's interesting is that this version of the comic has only really been reprinted once, which was like a year after it came out, and it has never been reprinted in this way since, because he kind of disowns this version. He was not happy with how it turned out.
What is he not
yeah, what was he
happy?
not happy with?
So this came out in April '92. In October 1993, Hero Illustrated #4, he did an interview, and yeah, I'll give a couple of quotes. It, here's one quote. The thing with Todd is that he went away after Spider-Man, and he had been critically trounced on Spider-Man. He always kids me, Youngblood #1 is your Spider-Man #1. And I say, yeah, you're right. Uh,
Ah,
so here's another quote. Youngblood #1, which was disappointing for me. It was late, and we had to get it out, and I had my best friend color it, another friend write it, and I thought, hey, cool. This is just like the comics when you're doing them as a little kid. But the result wasn't something that I liked. I made some mistakes. And lastly, here's one last quote. Youngblood #1 was a disaster, period, end of story. I worked with a friend who I let go after that, who scripted the book. When we reprint the
hmm.
first 4 issues, or 0 through 4, the whole comic will be rescripted, and people will see a different script on top of that. He says, I could acknowledge that it didn't turn out the way that it was supposed to. Issue 2, 3, 4, I'll hold them up against any other comic books as far as moving a story goes. So his friend, Hank Canals, did the scripting over this comic, and it did not turn out well, and so he kind of had to let his friend go, and then he took over the dialogue until about issue 5, and then Eric Stevenson started scripting.
I gotta say, I want to shout out this page on the right. I'm not gonna say I'm a huge Rob Liefeld fan. As you guys know, I came to this as an adult, but this is a good like punch
I must have drawn this a couple times as a
Yeah,
kid.
like this is well done, right?
Yeah,
It directs your
this
eye.
one for sure.
See, I'm not. There's anatomical issues with that,
Well,
but
okay,
I get that it is like you get like the power, the speed,
I was
the
gonna
frenzy.
I was gonna say though, professional wrestling, right?
Sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of drama like dramatic moves like this to
Yeah. Die Hard
overcome.
coming in from
Yeah,
the top rope.
exactly. So
But the next one, like it's like okay, I know what Die Hard has done, and now it's leading you into the next panel. Like I know it's easy to dunk on Rob Liefeld. Jesus Christ knows I have done it a lot, but
yeah,
I do want to shout out when he does something like this
Well,
is full of energy. This is full of he loves comics, and you can feel it in a lot of this.
so he considers his best quality to be as a visual storyteller and his ability to move a reader's eye through the page. So it's interesting that you mentioned that.
mm. I
Um,
would I was gonna
it,
actually going back comment on this panel the size relationships here, like when he first introduces the whole roster and how each
it's very Art
character.
Adams.
Very much so. But it's kind of obviously any artist would be guilty of abandoning this for the sake of storytelling going forward because like there's some really cool shots in here where some characters come off taller than others, especially that double page splash at the end. This one here,
Yeah, but like
like
this is
Badrock is huge
isn't he
compared
supposed to
to
be though? He is supposed to be enormous.
right, but compared to this,
Yeah, that see
you
the
know what
thing
I'm
I like
saying?
about this about that top panel there is that they have Badrock going out of frame. Like he's pushing, he's so large he can't even be
Yeah,
contained within the frame that they're all in.
yeah,
Well,
Um,
and what it comes down to is priorities. I think like his priority isn't like accuracy. He just thinks the panel looks better this way. He look better if Badrock is sized that way in each of those. It's all about the composition. That's his number one priority.
yeah. Because I remember being obsessed with this double page splash. I must have redrawn every one of these characters.
I do want
Interestingly, yeah.
I do want to bring up something though that this is a real historical nerd thing, but all of this is taking place in Washington D.C. And you can see skyscrapers in the background. Those don't exist in Washington. No building is allowed to be taller than like 390 feet or something. Like
All
it, you
right.
cannot be higher than like 12 stories in Washington.
Well, in the Image
It makes a
universe
lot of
is
sense.
Washington
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
that
this was the
IO
Image
building
universe. You know.
is
Oh,
just off panel at all
I'm
times.
gonna let me flip to the other side
That's
here.
funny. That cliffhanger was only really continued like 5 or 6 years ago by Michel Fife. He continues where that cliffhanger set off with a Blood Strike Brutalist.
I gotta say, I didn't notice that it was a cliffhanger that was never resolved.
That's a
Like
shaft card.
I didn't finish reading it going, wait, what did they do? Like
Yeah,
it's such a like I don't know elemental image that I didn't even think of it as a cliffhanger. I thought of it as like, blam, here we are, the home team of Youngblood.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that it has been reprinted since then, and the pages have been reordered, and Joe Casey redid all the scripting, and so that has been put in a different position, but it does kind of work that way in this
Yeah,
first issue.
yeah. Because coming into this, I tried to put my mind into the headspace of like between a you know you're anywhere from 9 to 12, and this is objectively pretty rad when you're that age.
Yeah, and that's how we should look at all these.
Yeah,
We shouldn't look at these as like these aren't adult comics. These are action comics for teen boys.
yeah,
Well, yeah. I mean, Rob Liefeld, I would say, is the progenitor of the awesome style, like
yeah.
that extreme style. He so much so that his companies are named after those exact words.
Yeah,
Like
right.
I don't even like
He's
it's
leaving nothing on the page. He is just
well,
like
he
yeah,
totally
it's
owns
awesome.
it.
Yeah,
he totally owns. It's him. And
yeah, he
there's
really
no one
does.
like him, right? So he's the dictionary definition of those words, right?
I think he does a good job of. You're right. He does. Man, he's got a lot of stuff that he doesn't do correctly. But you're right. He does lead your eye around. Like that left hand page. I think that's pretty good at like, okay, you're going here and then here and then here. It's like it's drawing your eye in this zigzag across those bottom three panels. And then on to the next page, you're like, okay, I'm going down. Yep, I'm going diagonally across all three of them. I know where I'm going. I'm not confused about where I should be looking at any one time.
Yeah, like he's got
Yeah.
the fundamentals down. And this, I mean, the aesthetic look of it too, like pouches and things like that. Like he's the originator of all those gimmicks, right? Style wise.
I've been thinking about the pouches, and I know you can't. It is able to go. You can go overboard on it, but I don't know. We've
And
seen a lot of like military images in the last 25 years. Uh, those guys have shit hanging off of them all over the place. Like
Yeah.
they
oh
are
yeah,
covered in
yeah.
pouches. Like of course, a superhero would have shit hanging off of them.
But also like the metal arms too. Like that's a staple, right?
Well,
Just give the
that's a
character a
big.
metal arm.
Oh yeah,
Well, it's a big part of the image style, which is just have shiny things all over,
Shoulder
just everywhere
pads.
on the
Yeah.
people and on the things around them in the background. Just lots of shiny stuff.
given the
Puffy ribbed shoulder pads.
Even the mutton chops as well, the Wolverine chops.
Yeah.
So many characters in this show up, like across these these books, show up with that Wolverine facial hair.
So, in terms of the craft of providing dialogue for a finished comic, I would recommend people study the Joe Casey version and this version,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of lessons to be made on just like how important the dialogue is and how to work with the art. Because we should say that Rob Liefeld's approach to making comics is, I don't know what his plotting process is, but he comes up with the story, he comes up with the entire narrative, and then he hands it off to a writer, and from there the writer provides all the dialogue. Which is an interesting way of making comics. I think a lot of Wildstorm comics were made that way as well. But
It's an even more stripped down version of the Marvel method,
Mhm.
right?
yeah. Well, it's more empowering to the artist,
Yeah. Yes, that's a good way of because
Mhm.
it's flipped. It's not Stan gives to Jack; it's Jack gives to Stan.
right? Yeah, and that's from the Marvel method. That's, I mean, the secret to the success of Marvel is that it was an artist creating these really cool visuals, and the artist was leading the charge, and that's the success of a lot of these Image comics as well. But yeah, I would recommend people look at the differences between, because this script, the dialogue here does not fully work and is oftentimes doesn't make a lot of sense, or is not utilizing the images as well as it should. And Joe
Yeah.
Casey at that point was like, what, 15 years into his career, a professional, and he knew exactly how to use these visuals. And there are a couple of interesting examples, like when Chapel gets out of bed and suddenly he's wearing the uniform. There are certain things that are acknowledged, or when there's an assassination attempt against Shaft, and it's not even acknowledged at all. But Joe Casey adds like a motivation to the assassin, and so things just make a lot more sense. And even this page is changed so that it's like Shaft is on the cover, and it's used as a way to push the narrative in a very specific way.
And
It was
so he
very clever what
redrew
Joe Casey
Shaft
did.
for this photo.
No, they just took a Shaft image and put it there, and then Joe Casey changed the entire.
Writing.
And it was so that Joe Casey could, like, because he reordered the pages, and he took like a page from issue 0 and put it in the front, and he took the prologue from issue 2 and put it at the very beginning, so that The main bad guy was set up early on, because that was one of the things that Rob Liefeld had an issue with, is he didn't set up the villain for this like 5-issue arc.
Colin, could you flip back a sec too? The right hand page I also want to bring attention to. I think I like we've just heard he's not crazy about the scripting, but I do think he actually has a lot of potential here with like the rhythm of this page, like bop 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 bop, bam. It's like you can see it being like this is spaced out and kind of these guys are teammates, they're kind of funny, but some of them aren't, and they're bouncing off each other. They're like, ooh. And then, okay, let's go.
And I love the coloring on this that page with the red section. It has been recolored in the modern version, and it's just colored literally, which I have issues with, like literal coloring.
You mean Sentinels like recolored literally?
Yeah,
I prefer stuff like this.
Yeah, like that's.
Yeah, I kind of this coloring has charm to it.
Yeah,
it feels like a neo-noir from the 80s. Yeah.
Although a page prior to this, there's like a neon green. It's like crazy. I love it.
Oh yeah.
This is a really nice look. Was it Steve Olive didn't color this? Who colored this?
No,
but he has a knack for using greens like this, like really beautiful, almost yellow neon.
So it was. I think Brian Murray came up with the colors, and then it was color separated by Digital Chameleon, which is interesting. This
Steve
is
Olive's.
Steve Ollie
Optics. Yeah, Ollie Optics. That's right.
It does, but this doesn't look very digital. I guess it doesn't have the signs of the early digital stuff, huh? I mean, actually, it's got like an airbrushy kind of look about it.
Yeah, but it's also competing with a lot of the lines that Liefeld, and especially Liefeld, but all of them would throw down. Like I think there's a lot of softening to that airbrushed look just from the amount of lines that they put down. Like it's almost like creating a tone over top of the colors in order to blend them better. Like I don't say that as like that was intentional, but I think it just worked out that way.
This is kind of colored like an anime. A little bit. Gives those vibes.
Yeah.
All right.
So
final thoughts before we move on to the next one.
So, Colin, this comic blew your mind when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, I was obsessed with Youngblood. I had to know everything about like what was happening every month. It was top of the read. Well, my read pile was only like 6 comics thick, right back then.
Right.
Because I didn't read this until recently. I mean, I had a bunch of Youngblood comics, but I think I had like issue 4 and 6.
We'll take this.
I had never read this one before.
Let's look at this beauty one last time before we move on to the next one.
My final thought is I'm surprised how much I liked it. I think I can see a lot of flaws with it, but overall, I get why people liked this. Like this is fun. This is not like anything you've seen before, and it makes me actually wish that Rob Liefeld had kind of put more time into his craft. Like I would have liked to have seen him like, okay, I'm going to go to figure drawing classes for a year and see what he comes out as.
Well, I mean, it's tough. Like he was one of the most successful comic artists probably who's ever lived, and so I wonder if there's like much incentive to.
No, there's not. Like society has told him you are good at this, you are good at art, but I don't know. I think of Carmine Infantino going back to art school after he left the EIC position at DC, like figuring I got more to learn. I gotta keep up.
That's interesting because I'm not aware of that history. Is there a huge difference between the before and after school?
It's a good question because Carmine Infantino was more of a 50s guy, and then he was in the EIC position for like a decade and a half, 2 decades, and he
didn't draw during those 2 decades.
Not really, no. And then he in like 78, he's cycled out, and that's when he goes to art school again.
Huh, interesting.
I believe. I want to make sure of that, but I'm almost certain.
I mean,
We should,
you have someone like Dan Panosian who recreated himself by. I don't think he went back to school, but he really invested himself in life drawing and studying the greats, and so that would probably be a similar story there.
but I'll always give a little extra credit to Rob Liefeld and specifically this book, Youngblood #1, as like if this was the book that caused the ruckus that got him to be like no, fuck you, I'll just do it myself, right? Or I'm going to go and do it myself. You're not going to stop me, right?
It's the first Image book, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
It's probably the single most important book of the '90s, at least.
I'd have to think about that one. Yeah, that doesn't sound right, but I don't know.
I'll say it, and I'll stand by it.
Single most important, interesting.
Well, it's the
But,
first. It's the first Image comic. This is the start of everything,
Yeah,
right?
the
And it was
first comic from the
Rob's
best
idea.
company, right?
Image Comics was Rob's
I actually
idea.
agree. I think that is it's the beginning of kind of the third phase of the comics industry, right? There's
Yeah,
Gold, Marvel, Image.
exactly.
Yeah. If I thought about it, I don't know. Yeah, it could be sold. But
Well, that's
next
what I
up,
think. Anyway,
next
next
up
up,
we have May 7th was Spawn #1, and this sold. Do you guys know how much this sold?
a million,
Just
1 point something million,
Uh,
1.6.
I looked it up. It was 2 million copies.
Oh wow!
yeah. Just so we don't
Crazy.
get harangued in the comments, Carmine went to school in the '60s. He went back in the '60s, and there is
Okay.
a notable increase in his ability
There
before
would
he
have
went
to be.
publisher. Yeah. Anyway,
So Spawn, uh, this comic came out pretty regularly, unlike most of the other Image comics out there.
right.
This
Yeah.
Spawn came out probably around every 5 to 6 weeks. So there weren't quite 12 issues over the span of 12 months, but very close to that.
But
Whereas
it
in
was,
contrast to a lot of the other Image books, there were a lot of gaps.
Yeah.
till this day though, this is Old Faithful.
Yep.
Spawn has come out consistently, even bi-weekly sometimes. I think in the 30s and 40s it was bi-weekly, and I think it was
Yeah.
Capullo and Tony Daniel that rotated out as artists around
Yeah.
that time, up to 50, right? They just kind of like put the pedal to the metal on the way to 50.
Did you guys notice a lot of these are dedicated to Jack Kirby?
I think they're all dedicated to Jack Kirby, at least
Yeah.
the first six, except for Wetworks.
Well, and Tom McFarlane's original plan was for Image to have their very own Stan Lee Presents, and he wanted it to say Jack Kirby Presents. But,
That would have been
it didn't quite
great.
go through.
Yeah.
Damn.
But he got
That's-
Jack Kirby and Roz Kirby's blessing. Like the Image boys got their blessing.
Oh yeah, because he's still alive at this point.
Yeah, yeah. They had Jim Valentino call Jack Kirby up and explain what they were doing, and that they were dedicating it to him, and yeah, it was very cool.
Nice.
Because this was only about like 3 or 4 or 5 years after the dispute over Jack Kirby's original art,
Right.
which
Yeah,
has
yeah.
got huge headlines. So, Colin, you probably read this comic, like 800 times when you were a kid?
I think that's an understatement.
Yeah.
That number's way too low. But these first few pages, so I just want to go right away into the art. Like you are right though. I've reread this a lot, and I don't want to, like, I studied it quite a bit. And these first 4 pages are a great way to establish a world, like with pretty much just silhouettes and just headshots and no actual storytelling. Like everything here is very static, right?
You know what it made me think of is like a detective noir from the '40s.
Yeah. Or like just an intro to a show in a way.
Yeah,
Right? Like
like-
there's just a lot of
yeah.
a montage of images. Everything
Yeah,
has to do
exactly.
with
Like
everything else.
yeah, and then our hero kind of narrating over it about like
Yeah.
the darkness and the city and everything that he's been through.
Yeah, this entire issue is basically just like sort of a dream sequence of someone who's very confused about their past, and then he saves a woman being mugged in an alley, and then the dream sequences continue. So it's supposed to be very confusing, and it's very artsy. I
Yeah,
was surprised going
Yeah.
back to this and
I
seeing
like
just
that.
how artsy this was. Clearly, he's trying to be Frank Miller, I guess, or trying to be playful with the storytelling. Like even going back to like page one, uh, just just how he's just how he's playing around with like space and like our view of the Earth, like
Yeah, the Earth hanging
when
there and then pulling
and then
back.
the next page when we have the thunder and lightning. Uh, this is not when you think about the image style of making comics. It's not this. It's not grids. It's
No,
not like
Mm.
big splash. It like the image style, as we know it, is just like splash pages that are not necessarily prioritizing the story. It's just trying to do a big fun image that teen boys would appreciate. But I really appreciate this comic because he is playing with storytelling. Uh, I think it's a really cool comic.
yeah,
Well,
it is.
I also wanted to say that Spawn, the concept itself, especially through 8, 9, 10, 11, like the lore of Spawn was a lot more defined later. So he knew what the overall feel of it would be, and like the overall story would be. But in terms of how it all came together, he decided to just kind of throw out a montage of images of like all this has to do with what you're about to read, and then I'll deal with it later, right? And this will be, it'll take him through 100 at least. Um,
Well, he
so
was setting up a mystery. You don't reveal everything in your first issue. You want to entice the reader and intrigue
yeah,
them. I would argue he didn't give enough in this issue,
yeah.
but
This is a
um,
really
Eh,
cool page though, with his
it's
hourglass.
great. You know what, Eric? You talking about this has made me think if Youngbloods is for like the jock kids, this is for like the tortured artist teen boys. Like this is for I see the beauty in despair and pain. Like this is kids like this is for the kid that wants to push, yeah, like emotions, feelings, sit with them, be artsy about how you convey them. Like that tumbling set of panels in the previous page, that's it's not like we haven't seen that done before, but you're right. Like you wouldn't see that in a Marvel book, right?
yeah, like he's
Except
really
maybe Doctor
playing.
Strange or something.
Exact. Yeah. Yeah. You would see it in like one of those weirdo, like a Doctor Strange or an Adam Warlock, but like one of the lower selling Bronze Age books where nobody was really in charge and everybody had a head full of acid. But not here. Like these are businessmen, right?
Yeah.
Businessmen
Well,
first and artists second.
McFarlane he studied graphic design, and he
Hmm.
worked briefly as a commercial designer.
Mm,
So his commercial design skills are all over this. Like even with the power counter thing, and also the all the logos he has for the news
yep.
agencies.
Hmm.
And in fact, like the gag is the guy in the middle gets fired for crossing the line like every
Yeah,
single
every
Oh
issue, and
single.
so
God. Yeah.
he has to design a new logo every issue for a new news agency. Which how many how many news anchor jobs are there?
In 1987, a lot more, but
Yeah, I guess for the local stations or whatever. But
yeah. Yeah, like New
um,
York, I think New York had like I don't even know. I'm just going to throw out 7. Viewers, if you were alive in 1987, tell us how many news channels were there in New York City and the tri-state area?
Okay.
man, one of my favorite aspects of this comic is the Steve Olive colors. I love this early Steve Olive stuff. Um, and I think it holds up a little better than like the later
Yeah,
digital coloring
I have this
because of the
as
limitation.
I have this as a poster, a 2 by 3 poster.
right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Steve Olive wasn't using Photoshop.
What was
He was
he?
using a proprietary software called Pixelcraft,
Oh.
and there were limitations in the software. Like he couldn't do a lot of like crazy tricks and stuff. Uh, he could only really like select areas and then like put a gradient in.
Mm.
And yeah, so just to explain, Steve Oliff is like the godfather of digital coloring.
Yeah.
He's the very first person to provide digital colors on comics, which he did on the Marvel epics. And so it was digital coloring was still new around this time, and Todd McFarlane wanted the best looking comic on the stand. And so who do you go for the best colors? You go to Steve Oliff.
Yep. I mean, he does it right. Like he hits. He's keeping the shadows. But like the cape is supposed to be like blood red, right? Just because it's all so intense and extreme and radical, and like it sells the feeling of he's a superhero, but he's not quite the superheroes that you're used to either.
Yeah,
Like,
I really do wish they kept this paper stock though, because it goes on to glossy. I don't know what issue exactly, but I
Yeah.
think when you go glossy, you lose. I think the newsprint paper keeps a lot of the color that gets.
yeah.
There's a richness to it that gets lost when it gets to glossy.
Yeah, glossy tends to punch colors up, which,
Yeah.
like, if that's what you're going for, great, but that's not really what Spawn is about.
No, I mean, I think Spawn is about glossy, glitzy, you know, top of the
Yeah?
line comics. That's how I see it. And
Oh, no,
I
see,
think colorists do prefer glossy because yeah, they do want the richer qualities.
well, I mean, thematically, it's not what Spawn is.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I misinterpreted that.
Which, like, I think that is something to think about, right? Is, like, what best suits the book that you're putting out, right? Because it can all have an effect. I had forgotten that Sam and Twitch are introduced right off the bat. Like
Yeah.
they're from the beginning.
This is actually I will say this is a nice page. I like the silhouettes, the
Yep.
cityscape silhouettes and stuff. Is this? That's not. I know that. Oh, that's New York City. Okay, it looked like
Yeah.
something else to me for a second. But yeah, I got
You
the
got
Twin
the Twin
Towers
Towers
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Which man, I'll bet. I mean, no, never mind.
It's a product of its time, Taylor.
No, no. The thing is, I was just thinking like. It's so easy to delineate this is a New York City skyline because of the Twin Towers for that set amount of years,
Yeah.
right? Like you could just be like, you know what this is, two tall rectangles.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bother learning the other buildings.
Yeah, so a quality of Todd McFarlane's layouts are these tall panels, which you can see on the previous page and this page here. Just
I really
not
like
not an easy thing to do
no
when you're drawing comics, and you have to
No.
tell the story in a very specific way. But yeah, that's a trademark of his, and it's makes for a nice looking page.
Well, you got to choose the
Yeah.
right angle, right? Like what I like that he does with a lot of tall skinny panels is he chooses like high up 3-point perspective, so you're kind of like you're looking down this canyon almost. I also really love this page on the left because he's giving Spawn all that space for you to fill in him dropping down through. Like you're like, oh, he's moving, he's going to be moving through that space, which is an important part of conveying motion is having a place for the object that's moving to go to.
You know, I would really like to ask him if Eisner was one of his influences, because he's employing a lot of things in his taller panels, especially with cityscapes like with rain and whatnot that Eisner would do.
Mm.
And a lot of the floating panels too. Like again, I don't want to keep going back to this page, but just a prime example is stuff like this. Eisner would do stuff like this.
That's true. He would,
you know,
yeah.
with newspapers and whatnot, right? So
Yeah.
Just like being very playful with the design of the page.
I would just like to pick his brain and say, what do you think of Eisner, and see what he says, right?
Well, the thing about a comic is there's kind of really no limit to what you can do on the page. The only limit is 11 by 17.
The other thing is,
Yeah.
again, I'm going to maintain. I know that Spawn went through an evolution again, also with his costume, especially the one from 32, like the costume that we know him with today. This costume was still, it was popping red that every panel Spawn was on. It drew the attention straight to him, right?
Oh yeah, that
Like he
cape.
had to be on the page for you to even just be interested in reading the page, right?
Well, and I think I think he does an interesting thing where I'm sure there's instances where this isn't true, but if red is on the page, it's kind of like with Daredevil. If red is on the page, it is because it's Spawn or associated with Spawn.
Yeah. His well, even black and white, his overall design is very anchor image friendly, right? So,
It is.
yeah, you can really utilize it to lead the eye and whatnot. So, oh, we're coming up to it. Coming up to that. So every issue of Spawn for the first, I think, year and a bit had a poster inside.
Ken
And
Stacy.
Radical.
yeah,
They used this as like the video game cover, I
I
think.
definitely
for the
remember
Super
that.
Nintendo game. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember.
So Ken Stacy was known for his painted comics around this time, and also he's a Canadian. He lives in BC, I believe.
He
So
lives
Todd
on the
McFarlane
island, I
probably.
believe. Yeah.
I assume Todd McFarlane knew him because Todd McFarlane was Canadian as well. So
He still is Canadian. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
right.
Man, his
Because
face design, I fucking love that he just gives people like a lived
Yeah.
face design.
yeah,
Like nobody's just like I don't know, cookie cutter. He's just making like these are gross guys. I'm gonna make them look gross.
yeah, yeah.
There is a quality to him and Rob Liefeld of just like, I guess how a teenager in class would be drawing
Oh yeah,
people. Like just how he draws people. That's you can see like, somebody drawing in their homework, a crazy looking guy.
I'm sure we all did it.
And that was the appeal. So I going back to like Steve Olive, I love the coloring here where this is kind of a trademark of the digital coloring around this time was you get all these like cut out detailing, which you don't see much in modern comics. And yeah, it's really cool. I love it. I'll say though that because it wasn't Photoshop and it had limitations, Photoshop was slowly being adapted by other comics, and they could use all these crazy effects and put all this glitzy like lens flares and like a whole
Yeah.
bunch of stuff. And Tom McFarlane wanted that,
Oh,
like, and so it got to issue like 42, and he, I think he told Steve Olive that he wanted somebody who knew Photoshop because he wanted the extra effects, he wanted the glitzy stuff in his, like, he wanted it to be the best colored comic on the stands. So Steve Olive did eventually have to learn Photoshop, but by then it was given to Brian Haberlin, and Brian Haberlin colored it for a while after that.
right. Yeah.
Got some nice more of the floating away panel look.
I love when he
Yeah,
does
just
the
crazy page
cutout
design.
of the
Staircase
eye.
using his mask.
Yeah, yeah. The mask eye just the white parts just being punched out. Like that's the only thing you see. That's a great idea. Like it's become so iconic with the character in this first issue. You know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a graphic designer, so he's
Yeah.
thinking about
There were times. Yeah. Speaking of which, like with Spawn's powers as well, you can notice. Like, take for example the cover. So on the cover, it's his powers are like this ball of gas sort of thing, and bubbling, and other times it's just circles. Like it's bubbles of like all just circles, kind of like a Kirby crackle in a way. So he wasn't afraid to like change things about Spawn. I did read an interview around the time of when the Spawn movie was coming out. How Spawn didn't have his cape for a lot of the movie. He goes, "I'm not afraid to make decisions like that." He goes, if it propels the character forward, like he will. He's afraid. He's not afraid to just not have him not have a cape, right, in the comic. Compromises like that. He's just like, whatever makes it better, go for it.
I also really like the way that he has Spawn and this woman interacting, like holding each other or holding her holding him and him holding on to her. Like those are some great hands. Uh,
The eyes are well done.
Hmm.
Yeah,
yeah, like
looks
it's
very meek.
yeah, it's really getting across what's going on here.
You all love the spider web paneling. It's just very cool.
yeah.
Another thing is like his costume is a costume in this. With this idea gets stitched pretty early on. That his costume's alive instead of not just a costume.
It does, but I want to say even after, because Spawn is the only one of these that I have read. I've read the first 100. I want to say that even when it is revealed that it's a living thing, there are still points where he'll pull the mask off, isn't there?
But it's like the Venom suit, right? It's like gooey. It's like all slimy, and
Yeah,
And even
that's a really
the
cool face. I love this face.
yeah.
yeah,
That will, yeah. I don't know if Capullo took this because that's a trademark Capullo thing. And now I'm wondering, did
the
Capullo take
teeth.
this from? Yeah, the eyes and teeth. Did he take this from?
Well, it's Spawn number 1, drawn by,
Yeah,
by Todd McFarlane.
yeah.
He's the
Although,
progenitor of that.
although we have seen it in earlier Capullo stuff. Um, I love that he gives no information about the counter either. Like that
Yeah.
counter shows up, it doesn't tell you anything. It just keeps counting down. I
Oh yeah.
remember there was a point where he did bring up in an interview, like, well, if you notice, it is counting down. So there's a countdown. So there's a zero coming. And it kind of kicked into gear fans being like, yeah, what is this?
Mm.
He didn't reveal that right off the bat in in interviews or anything.
I don't think so. Or if he did, he had dropped it out for a while too. Like it hadn't appeared. And then towards closer to 100, it started ticking down.
Well, I thought that was part of the marketing of just like there is a limitation to the amount of powers he has, and
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think he
that's what it
wanted
ended up.
to.
It's a power meter. That's what it ended up being. Is a
Yeah.
power meter,
And
and it
the
would
first introduction
fluctuate.
of Cogliastro does say, you only have a certain amount of power, but the suit is separate from you, so you can take power from it.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
And we got a
It's
couple
interesting
pinups here.
that Pitt appears in as a pinup in the second Image comic. I didn't realize it was because Dale Keown wasn't a founder. He was like the first additional Image comic after the founders. So I didn't realize Pitt was showing up this early.
Yeah,
Well, kicking an idea around.
this George
Well,
Perez.
like he was the first one. Dale Keown was the first one to be invited
Oh, cool.
to create an extra comic, and then Sam Keith and a bunch of others. Tom McFarlane has a write up in the back here where he. I found this fascinating because he wrote, "In the future, I hope to do a Spawn Spider-Man crossover,"
Huh.
which nowadays he's been asked about it in the past, and I think he's dead set against it. I remember hearing he said, "I don't do high school reunions." So the idea of going back to Spider-Man would be regressing, and he has zero interest in it. So it's interesting to see in this first issue that he mentioned it's possible. And we should also say that like 2 years after this comic came out was a Spawn Batman crossover. So
There
for
are
some reason
two.
he's cool with doing a Spawn Batman crossover, but
Hmm.
it doesn't seem a Spider-Man crossover is a go.
It doesn't fit anyway.
Yeah. Spider-Man he's not really a dark character, right? He's a bouncing joke machine. Batman kind of slots into the reality of Spawn a bit better. Both
Well,
are
yeah, I mean,
brooding
and
on rooftops.
that was some of the criticisms of the Spider-Man comics that Tom McFarlane was writing and drawing, where he was writing a horror
Well,
comic.
yeah, but which I do also understand because there's body horror elements to Spider-Man in general, right? Imagine
Yeah.
if you could just like bend yourself into those poses or stick to things and you don't know why.
McFarlane is the best Spider-Man artist.
You think so?
Yes, he
Yeah,
is.
I'm a Romita Jr. guy. JR is my favorite Spider-Man artist.
Any final thoughts on this before we move on?
I want to hear what Taylor has to say. Like, who's your favorite?
Personally, I really like Stuart Immonen as a Spider-Man artist.
Good choice. Good choice.
I like the way he has him move through space.
So
McFarlane did a lot. Final thoughts. This book rocks.
Yeah, this is one of my
I think
favorites
it's
of
the
the
most
bunch.
solid of all of them. Like,
I love the playful storytelling.
Yeah,
It was my favorite book overall as well. Like I stuck with Spawn for a long, long time. Yeah.
So in June of 1992, there was Spawn issue 2 and Youngblood number 2. But then in July of 1992, what do we have? We had Savage Dragon number 1. So we should say that there was a 3-issue Savage Dragon miniseries, and then he started over again the following year with the ongoing series. I had read as a kid the trade paperback that collected the first 3 issues, the miniseries, which collected everything into one long narrative without the like gaps between stories. And this chapter had like an extra 15 pages. So I had never read the shorter version of Savage Dragon number 1, which is this. I had always read the expanded version from the trade. So this was interesting because there was a lot of missing stuff from what I remembered.
Is that so? When he did restart with a new number 1, we'll throw the cover up right now. This cover, Savage Dragon ongoing number 1, is one of my most favorite covers ever. I love this cover. As soon as I saw this book on the stands, I was obsessed.
So this comic sold 500,000 copies, and so this is interesting. It opens in media res. It opens like in the middle of the story. The trade paperback that I read, he reordered everything, put it all in order, and it starts with the fire sequence that we'll see, and then puts this in the appropriate order chronologically. So,
see, I like that it opens just in the middle of its own story. I think that's taken a swing that I don't think a lot of these. I mean, actually, no, that's not true. A lot of them already open with like established stuff.
The thing is, it's very clear what's happening in that he's a cop, even though he's a green skin, he's got a fin and all that. He's a cop, and this is obviously a bad guy because of the Skulls, right? Skulls is macho shit. So
does that make Spawn a bad guy?
Well, an anti-hero, sure.
Yeah, kind of.
A soldier from hell.
No, you're right. You're
so you
right,
do
Colin.
have
This
like
is a
some
great way
familiar,
to
like
open
it's
it
grounded
up.
still, right?
Well, it's also more exciting than like somebody waking up
it-
with amnesia and then having to have them walk through like.
Yeah.
And it establishes like what is this book? Oh, it's a
It's an action
giant
comic.
green finned cop. Yeah, there's no question about what this is going to be because we're already.
And I love how they
seeing,
maintain that
punches
he's
bad
got a
guys.
tie. Like I don't think the badge by itself would have sold it. The tie is also really important in his design. And Eric Larson was so great. He's still great, but this kind of stuff, it was. I redrew these speed lines on punch outs like all the time based off this book alone.
This was one of the ones that I knew the least about, and I've only really come into contact with like modern day Eric Larson, and I have to say I was really impressed with this book overall. It was like, oh, he's doing something. He's a lot tighter here, and I really like that he's. I feel like he's the one channeling Kirby the most out of any of them.
Well, he's the biggest Kirby guy
Like
I think of all 7 of them.
And there are phases later on in the Savage Dragon runs where he goes full Kirby. And where because his Savage Dragon is like based around what he's most inspired by, and so you have like the years where he's super into Calvin and Hobbes, and then you have the years where he's like super into Jack Kirby and
Calvin Hobbes, the secret through line of this entire series.
of ink scribes.
That's right. This is cool. The rhythm that he sets up in this page, like it's very da 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 da
Yeah,
da da
you
da
don't get a
da.
lot of like pages like this in a lot of the other Image comics that we're going to look at. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to paint a broad brush and say all like there is an Image style and all these people were following the Image style, but you do get grid pages.
Well,
You do get like 8 panel pages here and there, 12 panel pages, and then you get the big splashy stuff. And
I
Yeah.
think early on between Spawn and Savage Dragon, there was a way more fleshed out concept because Larson had a lot of ground he wanted to cover in this series, so he already knew what he wanted to do. And I think taking scenes like this is a talking head scene, but there's 15 panels on one page, but he's just trying to get this information out so he can get back to head punching, right?
well, also this was a childhood creation of his.
Yeah,
So
but so was Spawn, right? Or a high school anyway.
But he's also not being lazy about it. Like there's a storm going on outside and
yeah,
lightning crashing. Not every panel is lit and blown out like that. He doesn't have to do
well,
that,
yeah,
but
it's
he
a very good,
does.
nice playing with
Yeah.
atmosphere. The lightning effect is very cool.
Yeah, he's doing more than I expected, which and by a lot too. Like it was a low bar for him to clear, and he like just
Yeah.
sails over
So
it.
what's interesting looking at all of these comics together is they all have, or there's multiple names for superpowered characters. So Eric Larson calls them super freaks.
Yeah.
In Spawn, characters
Yep.
were referred to as Youngbloods, because I guess like Liefeld's team was famous
Okay.
in that world. And in Cyberforce, they're just called mutants.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very fun that
Huh.
everybody had their own thing going on.
Could you flip back quickly, Colin? This is for all my fellow Trekkies out there. It's the right-hand page, middle panel of that stack. I know he's supposed to be this older black man, but I cannot not see
Oh,
Captain
Yeah.
Picard in that face.
I can kind of see it. Yeah.
I think he's more of a Danny Glover type, though. He's supposed
Yeah.
to be. Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's what he's supposed to be, and that's what he almost is every other time. But just in that one panel, I was struck by, and I like showed it to my wife. She's like, "Yeah, that's exactly who it looks like." This is a great design for a villain too.
I love the Simonson sound effects, man.
Well, especially the boom,
Ooh, yeah.
like
That's-
the next page. It's like a huge,
Oh yeah,
or a couple of pages later, a
Okay.
big Simonson sound effects.
Oh, nice poster.
sick.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's straight out of Thor and the making of the Twilight
Yeah,
Sword.
definitely.
It is really funny that all 7 creators, all their books, the way that they were able to, I think it really helped that it was a shared universe. Like it wouldn't have worked if Todd McFarlane wanted to do like a sword and sorcery book, or if Jim Lee wanted to do like a futuristic sci-fi thing. It just overall would not have worked.
Well, they all
Because-
agreed to do superhero stuff. Like it was
Yeah.
it was a plan because they wanted the shared universe aspect, and they wanted the fun crossing
They
over,
just
which,
didn't
as you
put
mentioned,
anybody in
like Youngblood is the through line for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like although there's no,
Yeah.
is there any mention of Youngblood in this comic? Yeah, I don't think so. The thing is that Eric Larson had all these creations from his youth, and so right away he populated it. Like Mighty Man on the previous page, that's a Captain Marvel type character.
And a great idea that, it made me go through and like Wikipedia. What's up with Mighty
Yeah.
Man? Oh, there's a lot going on that
he turns
I'd
out
love
to
to
be a
know
woman
way
at one
more about
point.
that character.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, the nurse character that
Yeah,
he
like,
ends up
what a great
being
idea.
is introduced in the expanded version. Like when Savage Dragon
Yeah.
wakes up in the hospital from amnesia, he's talking to that nurse. and also in the expanded version, he goes to police academy, and you get to meet the entire supporting cast. There's a sequence where you get to see everybody who works in the
Oh, okay.
precinct, and yeah, so yeah, this feels weirdly empty considering what I had read many times when I was a kid.
Larson's overall thought is that all superhero universes are in one shared universe.
Oh yeah,
He treats it that way. So if Savage Dragon
Okay.
does cross over with, say, Superman already exists in the universe, and he just goes with it.
yeah.
That's taken a
Hellboy
cue
shows
from.
up
Okay.
in
Oh,
issue
very
like
cool.
36.
Yeah. Remember X-Men Titans? They did the same thing. Claremont had them both in a shared universe of their own.
Yeah.
And that's a
There's-
Simonson book, right? So I
So the
figured,
dragon, dragon
Yeah.
with the sunglasses, bandages, and big guns. I think this was very much part of the macho Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, Stallone era of the culture. I think he was really tapping into that zeitgeist.
yeah.
That's interesting because I think you're right, but this is also
Well,
the time that has kind of
I'd
fallen
throw
out of
Lethal
favor
Weapon in
for
there.
more of a Die Hard on an X sort of
Well, yeah, I guess like because
story
in
idea.
Die Hard, it's
Like,
more the everyman rather than the action hero.
yeah, and you get more of you get it in like Under Siege or the upcoming, like at this point it's not out yet, but Speed. But I do think that's interesting because this is the first huge creation by Gen Z or Gen X for millennials, right? Like before it was like the greatest generation making stuff for boomers, and then it was boomers making things for Gen X, but now this is Gen X making stuff
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
millennials. So like they're super influenced by the 80s action movies that they were watching while drawing their books in the late 80s,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
and
that
like
does make
I
sense.
think all the Image books fall into that, like the macho action hero type
Yeah.
imagery. Like, I mean, the whole thing with like the Savage Dragon like shooting a machine gun at these people. This is what a cop would do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what a cop would do.
That's what
As we now
Arnold
know.
Schwarzenegger or Stallone as a cop would do in an 80s an 80s movie.
Yeah.
Guns that would break your
Yep.
arm if you tried to shoot
Yeah,
them.
it's all the first half of Predator. This is a great little. I liked this kind of weirdo design, and he's like, "What the hell is going on here?" Anyway, I'm out
Well,
of
he
here.
loses. Actually, Star loses the wig later on, so he's got a skull cap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Great design though. Like that's
yeah, it's a really nice design. I always like that design.
yeah, and
I mean, all the villain designs are like crazy.
Yeah, I
yeah,
really like
the shark that walks. Holy shit! What a great idea.
the vicious
Doesn't
circle.
doesn't every universe, every superhero universe have a walking, talking shark?
They don't have enough
Hell,
of
there's
them, is what I'm saying.
Oh, and then we got a blurb at the back from Larson. Is this the back cover page? No, one more page. Oh, but they're hawking Malibu books.
yeah. For the first year of Image, Malibu was distributing.
Yeah. What was the deal with their connection? They were distributing. Were they printing as well, or?
Yeah, they were dealing with the distributor and the printer, and they were just as a deal as the first year they would take care of all that. But eventually, the creators, they would go to these conventions, and the distributor would come by and talk to them, and then the printers would come by and talk to them. And after a while, they realized, well, we can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And Malibu got an amazing deal out of that. They made so much money because they were, I think they were making a small percentage off these $1 million selling books, and it like bankrolled Malibu for the next like several years.
Keeping Sigil in business.
Well, yeah, and then they created the
Ultraverse.
yeah. I think they created the Ultiverse.
Keeping those Prime books on the shelves.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prime and everything else. So, what was up after Savage Dragon?
So in August was Wildcats number 1, Spawn number 3, Brigade number 1,
Brigade.
and also Shadowhawk #1. So in August there was a Shadowhawk and Wildcats.
So we'll do Shadowhawk first.
But it was crazy that Brigade was coming out around that time too, because originally it was they got together and all the creators thought that okay, we're each going to do one book, but then Rob Liefeld starts producing more books and then more, and then I think competition sets in, and then Jim Lee's like start releasing more books as well, and then Silvestri as well, and then you got these big studios.
Who was drawing Brigade at the time? It's not.
Yeah, I
Liefeld.
think it's Mark Michaels.
Oh, Moran. Oh, okay. Yeah.
But this cover was done by Valentino and inked by Rob Liefeld, and it's an embossed silver foil cover.
That makes.
I think it's the only gimmick cover of the line.
Yeah.
For the #1s.
Which is
famously
right.
Yeah, famously, Todd McFarlane said he wasn't going to do gimmick covers because he said the gimmick is Todd McFarlane. That's all the gimmick
That's
you
Marat
need.
Michaels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking.
So this comic sold more than Savage Dragon. It
What?
sold 750,000 copies.
Holy
Which
shit!
I don't understand what the whole ordering is. I don't know how retailers are deciding how much to order of Savage Dragon and how much to order of Shadowhawk, but it is probably like an incremental thing. Like they're seeing how big these Image comics are and how much they're selling, and that must snowball month to month.
Well,
Do you think it had anything to do with the cover?
or the guys involved with it,
Yeah, who knows?
right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if retailers were like, "Oh, a new McFarlane book or a new Liefeld book. Yep, I'm going to take millions of them. We'll take millions of them." But like, who the hell is Jim Valentino? You mean the guy?
He's the Guardians of the Galaxy guy.
Yeah, the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy, a book that was not popular until the 2014 movie. That had nothing to do with what he did.
It was still he was writing and drawing it, and it was still selling something like 250,000 copies.
That's not. That's
and
too
it was
no.
Well, yeah, but it was a book that sales went up with every issue.
Oh,
which
okay.
is
All right,
significant.
that makes more sense.
That means that it's popular. That means that word of mouth is spreading around, and people are saying you've got to buy this book, and then every month it goes up more and more. And so he had a following.
Okay,
but he wasn't of the same generation as I guess he's in the same generation as Silvestri, because all the other creators came up in the late 80s, whereas Valentino and Silvestri came up in the early 80s.
Oh, okay.
But also, like, Jim Valentino's crowd were the cool indie kids, I guess. He wasn't really a mainstream guy, even though he did eventually in mainstream comics by working at Marvel.
It does kind
But he was friends with Rob Liefeld.
feel that way.
Yeah,
he's not really. It does feel like he's kind of out of his element in this book. With like, he's not quite a superhero guy.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like an 80s black and white indie guy trying to do the Image thing, or trying to draw like Liefeld or Jim Lee. And doing all the tropes that you would associate with an Image book, with lots of anchor images, big splashy moments, splash pages.
Yeah, but his style feels more suited to like a Love and Rockets kind of slice of life book or something.
I think McFarlane did a lot of this type of lettering in Spider-Man, and I think he's trying that on. I think he's trying a lot of different things that puts him out of his comfort zone.
Okay. Which
his wife was lettering this comic.
Yeah, his wife did letter the comic. Yeah, but he's like, do this, do that, right? Like in terms of how, like, you can still read this, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's not the. I don't know. Designers in the comments sound off. What do you think?
And Taylor, to your point about how this doesn't feel like a what he should be doing. Like, I think he considered doing like a more artsy thing, but I think he looked around and said that like there were a lot of Big Two popular creators who left the Big Two to do more artsy stuff, and it always failed.
Oh,
so his mentality was, let's give the people what they want. Right now, the people want violent superheroes.
Right. Well, Shadowhawk is incredibly violent. What do you guys think of this one?
I always loved the character design of Shadowhawk. I had the action figure and everything. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and so the other, if you're not familiar with Shadowhawk lore, when his identity is revealed, he's revealed to be a black man, which I don't think. I think it was a big deal at the time because there
In
was
the
an
90s?
article on it.
Yeah.
And his MO was breaking your back. He didn't
What?
kill
Breaking
people, but
spines.
he would break your back. That was his big
Well,
thing.
Oh
yeah,
my
the whole thing was
god.
like breaking spines.
Oh
That's
my
his.
god.
So yeah, this is a mystery book. In the comic, Valentino introduces several characters, and you as the reader question who is Shadowhawk out of all these characters. And there's
Yeah.
like red herrings, like you have characters who show up. Hey, you were missing for a little while we
Yeah.
were hunting Shadowhawk. What's going on there? And that's like, but it's on this page here on the second page. It's the more stoic looking black dude who's only on like 2 pages in this comic. So, that was his way of hiding it as much as possible. But yeah, a bunch of topical stuff. Like there was around this time, like probably more than, yeah, I think throughout the 80s, I think there were a lot of like in poorer neighborhoods, there were just buildings that would be burnt down to collect the insurance money.
Oh yeah.
And,
This is 92, right?
yeah.
Yeah, New York City is there are 2,000 murders a year in New York City at this time.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
There's like
really rough.
there's like 400 per year now. Like it is a huge drop because there were so many like derelict buildings that they would just burn down for the insurance money or real estate developers trying to force people out.
Which, if you go to the credit page, Colin, it says that there's there are New York consultants, Leslie and Adam.
Huh.
So, yeah, I think he took it very seriously. He wanted to do some commentary on New York, and he also wanted to be very topical because there's a whole AIDS thing that happens in the story as well.
Yeah, Shadowhawk ended up having AIDS.
Yeah, and this is around the time that it becomes more like Magic Johnson is revealed to have it. Princess Diana is like shaking hands, bare hands with AIDS patients. It's becoming more like being forced to be more visible in the media.
Yeah, and it showed up in a lot of comics around this time as well. And then there was the Legacy virus in the X books was like a allegory for that.
Yeah.
But also in the credits page, there's a thank you to Extreme Studios, to like Dan Fraga, Kurt Hathaway, Richard Horry, Cherry Liefeld, Merritt Michaels, Norm Rapmond. I always wondered what this thank you is. Maybe he consulted with them on the image method of drawing comics, but I don't know. Because I don't think this is too far off from how he was drawing Guardians of the Galaxy. But maybe it is a little bit more extreme because it's more violent. It's, the whole breaking spines thing. This was a rejected pitch for the Archie comic The Fox.
Really?
Which he saw the Fox as like a more violent Batman.
Holy shit. Yeah. Okay.
And the name the name he got from I guess when he was writing and drawing Guardians of the Galaxy, he had the character Starhawk go dark. And he suggested to call the dark version of Starhawk Shadowhawk, but the editor rejected it. So he saved it and used it to create his superhero comic.
Great name.
Oh, got another poster coming up. Oh no, it was the coupon.
Oh.
Remember these coupons, Eric, that ran through a bunch of the books? Yeah. So Spawn number 4 was out this month too, and that had a coupon in it.
No, Spawn number 4 was out the next month. This was the same month as Spawn number 3.
And this is the first comic to have the coupon, I would say then. Right?
Cool.
Yeah, probably.
This or Youngblood?
Yeah, I'm not sure which Youngblood it was in because at this point there were two Youngblood issues out.
See, I think okay. So I'm not. I will say I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the Dark Shadowhawk stuff, but I do think he's doing really good stuff with the talking heads, like regular people stuff. Like this is a great page.
Yeah, this is a nice shot right here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that and just like
Yeah,
the background and the panel behind her is tilted. She's doing like
yeah,
the over the
Dutch
shoulder
angle right
thing.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, the silhouette, like it's all very okay. I get what this is. This is kind of a soap opera y exchange, and yeah, it's interesting to see like where do strengths lie and where they don't.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, and to go back to what you said about the Spawn branding, like he's clearly branding the logo of Shadowhawk here when
Oh
he's
yeah,
throwing the thing there,
The
whatever you call it.
his little batarangs,
Yeah, because that logo was like
shadowrangs.
that logo was
that,
on the credit page as well. Like that's clearly meant to be
Yeah,
it's
the
part of the logo.
iconography.
yeah.
Oh
It's on
right,
his
yeah,
belt as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the part of the K.
yeah. I should also say that he originally was going to do a team book called The Pact, but then he looked around and like Jim Lee, Liefeld, Portasio, Silvestri, they were all doing team books.
Oh,
So
fair,
They
yeah.
were
he thought it was wise to join McFarlane and Larson to do a solo character.
I do like this page. I think it's there's some anatomy issues, but overall it's you get the feeling of this character just kind of sailing through the night.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and it's
I
what you
love
want out of an Image comic around this time, right?
Well, it kind of works either way. Like you can read it like this, or you can flip it 90 degrees, and it still works.
mhm.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah, you
love the
get a sense of
silhouette
wording.
cityscapes.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of that John Byrne
That's I was gonna
Black
say
Spider-Man.
just yeah.
Yeah.
I
Did you
think
guys
that was,
notice how he numbered the pages?
No.
yeah, he hand wrote it, the numbering.
Did
Yeah,
he?
I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah. All right. And he's got his blurb here at the end too. I think every book, like the creator, the artist on the book did a full page blurb on
their
like
own
thanking the
little
fans and what's in store and all that kind of stuff, what to expect.
their own little Stan soapbox sort of thing,
Mm.
or bullpen roundup.
And which would later become the letters page too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that it's in that K, that logo.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Here we go.
So August 1992. And this one, the only number I could find was it sold over 1 million copies. Couldn't find an exact number.
Feels like it should be much higher than that.
Yeah, considering he's like famously sold like what 9 million copies of X-Men #1. Like that's
Eight.
the record. 8 million copies. So that's the record. But,
Well, and just like this feels like the most Image comic there is.
oh, does it? Yeah, I guess it does.
So just to me, it's just like it's kind of got everything, right? It's the most famous artist in comics. It's got guys with glowing hands and chicks and giant dudes and chicks with swords and guys with guns. Like it's just so this time.
It's interesting you say Jim Lee's the most famous guy in comics. Uh, at this time, McFarlane was #1 top dog. And he was that throughout the entire 90s. And I do think he has like Jim Lee has taken over the #1 spot since then.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. Like of all the books, of all the number ones that came out, of all these creators, Wildcats. Even though I did still consume Wildcats, it's the one book where I would have preferred Jim Lee. I'm like when I was reading Wildcats, I was like, I really wish he was on X-Men again. You know? But for Todd McFarlane, for Mark Silvestri, Liefeld, I was on whatever the new creation was. I was on board and I was ready to follow them. Right, but with Jim Lee, it was the one guy I was just like, you know, because like Eric and I, we always have this debate between, you know, he thinks that the Uncanny X-Men, Jim Lee is the best X-Men, best Lee X-Men, and I think that these the adjectiveless title, like
Well,
the title
I don't
that he
think
launched.
it's the best. I think it's my favorite because it probably the main X-Men stuff probably is his best work, but the Uncanny X-Men stuff excites me more for many reasons, which I will cover in a future episode.
Right. But in any case, so this book, I still love this book. You know, I still loved all the characters. I still bought all the toys, watched the show, everything. But in my like deep down, I was like, man, I really wish he would go back and draw X-Men again.
I get that, yeah, because
Yeah.
this does feel kind of like
Yeah.
it's so close that you feel like but it's not it. Like
Well,
if it were more different, it wouldn't feel like I think I wouldn't think he should be back on the X-Men, you know. But like you bringing it up, I'm like, yeah, it would have been cool if he were on the X-Men.
well, I mean, McFarlane, I just said he drew the best Spider-Man, and I loved his Spider-Man. But as soon as he went for Spawn, I was like, let's go. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't even miss him on Spider-Man. So yeah.
So yeah, I read this comic so many times when I was a kid. This Wildcats was like one of my favorite comics. And it's interesting because I didn't know a lot of comics history, so I just saw Jim Lee. But reading this from an adult perspective, more educated, I see Barry Windsor Smith all over this.
Oh yeah.
Something I didn't see before.
Yeah.
Just that crosshatch rendering.
Yeah.
style.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really love his character design too. He like I'm not going to say that he draws massively different people, but in terms of the features that he gives them, like who is this? John Lynch is the guy with the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Lynch, like great design. Void's design. I love that he calls her. I can't remember what her first name is, but her last name is Tereshkova.
Adriana, I think.
He's a Russian cosmonaut.
Valentina Tereshkova was the first woman in space.
Oh well, that was definitely the inspiration.
Yeah.
This was co-written by Brandon Choi, who was a big military history guy,
Okay.
and just a history guy in general. And is why you get all these like military acronyms
Like
scattered.
IO. Yeah.
Yeah. CATs. I love that they just casually throw around Covert Action Team as CAT.
Yeah.
But also, like, it's also kind of maybe not progressive, but like transgressive to have a little person as like one of the main characters. How often do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was taking into account the size relationships, like what everybody on the team had a different silhouette and a different shape and size.
Yeah.
If you go back one page, you can see a box of X-Men #1s in the alleyway. It just seems like a fun commentary on like 9 million sold to retailers, but not necessarily to fans. And there's just even boxes of them in the alleyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so this was the appeal of Jim Lee for me, is when he draws a dirty alleyway, he fills it with stuff. There's garbage, there's debris, there's boxes, trash cans. There's just so much. If you go and look at how Todd McFarlane draws an alleyway, or we'll see how Silvestri draws an alleyway, there's grime and lines all over the place. But the thing that I loved about Jim Lee when I was a kid was he just filled the space with stuff.
Yeah.
Well, this panel in particular, I think he's mimicked it from Mazzucchelli's Born Again. I think there's a panel where Murdoch is laying amongst a bunch of boxes, and I think that even this pose is taken from that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were all inspired by Frank Miller. So
They sure were.
Mm.
Including Mazzucchelli. Spoilers for coming up.
So you guys have read the Alan Moore Wildcat stuff?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, there's a panel I think of now coming back to this where like the original Wildcats are like thought to be dead, and so in Alan Moore's first Wildcats issue, they're recreating the new team, and they discuss, and this is like meta commentary. They're trying to come up with the perfect team, the two leaders, and they discuss what every superhero team needs. And you know they always need the loner character, and they always need the big guy, and they and I think about that now, looking at this comic
Mm,
of the archetypal superhero team and how this was his attempt at doing his own X-Men,
Of
because
course.
there's the Wolverine character and there's the Cyclops character, and
Yeah,
there's
Warblade and Spartan. Silvestri has that going on in Cyberforce too, but we'll get to that when
yeah.
it comes.
Yeah, it actually feels a lot more hidden in this the analogs, but you can still pick them out. But
yeah, is it mirror? There's a lot more world building in this comic than a lot of the other ones. Like it feels like
there
they put a
definitely is.
lot of thought into the mythology of this world,
Yeah,
into
like
the
IO
Yeah,
being at the center of everything, and the Halo Corporation, and like
yeah. On top of being aliens, and on
yeah,
top of being thousands of
yeah.
years old, and on
How
all these
weird is
different
that?
things. Yeah, there was a lot to follow in this. Yeah,
yeah. Most of the others are mysteries. It's like an onion where you're like peeling off layers issue by issue. But in this one, you just learn most of the mythology right off the bat.
True. Yeah. It's
yeah. In terms of a universe per se, I think Wildstorm had the best and still the most continued potential as a universe. Like the characters
oh yeah.
introduced and just the overall lore. I think it's still enduring to this day through DC. Right?
Sleeper is a direct outgrowth of this issue, and
Mm,
like that's
What?
one of my favorite books of all time.
yeah.
Because of the Jack Lynch connection, you mean, or
There's that. There's IO. There's
IO.
just like
Yeah.
setting up all of the super spy stuff that starts here.
hmm. And
Coming soon, Sleeper. We're gonna do it.
Oh,
yeah,
oh, Sleeper.
With some
yeah,
visual
and
effects
so
right here.
they
Yeah,
clearly did a lot of planning because there's a lot of like time travel stuff. Like the first two pages
yeah,
come back
yeah.
in future issues. Like the second page is labeled the future, and we see that in issue two, and then uh, you get Void having a vision of her confronting Gnome, and that comes back in issue four. So uh, there was clearly a lot of planning that happened for this
Yeah,
four issue series.
yeah. There's a lot of planning. It's like you know what it makes me think of weirdly is Luke Skywalker being given a lightsaber. Movie tradition tells you Luke should be using that lightsaber by the end of that movie, and he just doesn't. He doesn't at all. But he will stick around for more, right? Like that Arctic scene. What's that about?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
goes
it's
nowhere in this, but it. I assume it will show up later on.
yeah. I guess that's the part that's supposed to entice you because they are giving you a lot of the mythology up front.
Yeah.
Some really nice page design here for this double
I
page.
was gonna say, yeah, like throughout, I think an underrated aspect of Jim Lee is his storytelling rhythm and the page design that he
Well,
did.
also just introducing the characters. I mean, yeah, you have like storytelling with anchor images, but in this case, like we've seen Void already, so he goes with
Mhm.
just still interesting but side profile shot. But this is the first time we're seeing Spartan, and his most identifiable aspect of his character design is his mask.
The mask
So
is
having this
badass.
this shot's crucial. Like I love this shot. There's a lot of he's ticking all the boxes when
Yeah,
he doing
This
the
mask
first issue.
showed up a lot
Yeah,
in the '90s, eh? The
yeah,
sort of like cut out balaclava,
yeah.
which I think he created because he sort of did it with Gambit a little bit, and yeah,
mm,
man, that void face right there, that's like on the original art, that's almost 17 inches high. Not
yeah,
quite because the paper is 17 inches, but geez, yeah,
right. Yeah, that would be what a foot a foot high.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, he does a great job of setting everybody up. Warblade, Maul, Spartan.
Spartan, Grifter, Zealot,
Yeah.
Voodoo. Yeah. Pike, Hellspawn. Oh man, you're taking me back.
Hellspawn. The design,
Hellspawn was a great villain design.
his design is like,
The action figure had like the flames were like that kind of a gel silicone effect. A
okay,
blue.
yeah,
It was like a blue flame silicone. They do it with the Ghost Rider action figures
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
Um, that was a cool. I love that design.
Yeah, it's very cool.
There it is, right there. That's
Yeah,
just,
this is like, man, to continue with his character design, like that's fucking rad.
yeah,
That is awesome. It's just like it's a skull, Wolverine mask on fire with tubes and capes, and he's just like, I don't know what he is, but I want to find out.
yeah. Is he an alien? Is he like a ghost or what is
Yeah,
he?
is he from?
Yeah,
Is he literally from hell? Like it could be anything, and it kind of doesn't matter because they would all be satisfying.
yeah,
And then I love the little detail that there's a spy bar just outside of Washington D.C. Anyway, it's the top strip club now.
Well, yeah, and that sets up Grifter has been around for decade. Like he's an old man, but he looks young.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
So
they do a great job of setting that up. I will say I don't think she has. She doesn't really. Voodoo is supposed to be a stripper. She doesn't. She doesn't really have a stripper vibe. She has more of a go-go dancer vibe.
well, I mean, this was her superhero costume, kind of like
yeah.
put in as a stripper outfit, I
Yeah.
guess. Like, but she eventually loses this outfit. Like she keeps it for actually only this miniseries, and then they give her a new costume.
Oh, okay.
Where she's got full legs, full leggings. Yeah,
Yeah, like a full bodysuit.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, nice utilization of the double page spread.
hmm Once
I'll talk
again,
about that
the
later.
grifter mask, like what a fantastic design. I would have never thought of just like it's just kind of tied around the top and hangs over his face, but it still works
Very cool
so
costume.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really cool costume design, especially when he uses real guns.
Yeah.
Like Lee gave him those little phaser guns for the first few arcs, but when you get it more into his past and he starts incorporating pistols, like real pistols and assault rifles and stuff like that,
Well,
that's when,
he's got a real gun on the next page, I think. Uh, kind of hidden up his sleeve.
Oh yeah, doesn't he have like a
right,
derringer? He's got like a derringer hidden up his sleeve. Yeah.
right there, yeah,
Yeah. The two-shot pistol that you always see like it's on a track. Also, the McFarlane talking head, one of the talking heads from Spawn.
Right.
mm.
Yeah.
Same news
And then
anchor.
Yeah.
the entire Youngblood team shows up in issue 3. So in the previous ones, we just had like Shaft show up on a TV screen or like, references here and there. But
Sometimes,
Jim Lee
yeah.
actually draws the entire team show up to like save the day while the Wildcats are like in the background trying to save the day. And actually, I think they fight the Wildcats. So
I really like this introduction of the team in action, like the Wildcats as a group just descending down towards us, and
Mm.
gives us a good idea of like their powers are all kind of activated, right? Void is the teleporter. Spartan's got glowing fists. Maul is huge. What is it? Warblade?
Warblade is Wolverine. Yeah,
Yeah, he's got like he's like his power is out front. It's just it's
he,
very like you said. It's he's ticking boxes, but he's doing it in a
yeah.
really visually interesting way.
Well, I mean, Terminator 2, I think, came out the year before this came out, and the T-1000 with his morphing metal, sword
yeah,
hands, that was definitely an influence on Warblade.
Yeah.
yeah. So this is a conveniently placed advertisement because you had a double page spread earlier and then you have another double page spread coming up, and the only way to make it work was to put this here,
Mm.
but that created a problem when it was collected in trade.
Yeah,
And so I have this absolute edition, which is like recolored.
Look at the size of that thing.
Yeah. And
it's a beauty book. Yeah,
in place of that advertisement is a brand new page.
What is it?
It's basically because if you turn the page there, so you see somebody is like dispatched,
Yeah.
and then you see who dispatched them, and so what can you put in
yeah.
between?
This is a very important double page for
So
sure.
in between there, you have a splash page of the dude falling and everybody reacting
Oh, okay.
and staring at Zealot before you introduce Zealot. But it is, I don't know when he drew that new page. I don't know if he did it like a year later for the trade, or if he did it, 7 years ago for this Absolute Edition. But it does, I might be wrong, but it does look like modern Jim Lee drew that extra page, which I'll throw up on the screen now.
Oh.
And hey, let's take a moment and actually appreciate this ad, though. This
Yeah,
is
that
the
looks
most.
rad.
This is really great. I was obsessed with Ripclaw,
Sure.
his design back
Yeah,
then.
he looks great.
Yeah. Same idea, of course, with the cybernetic talons, but
Yeah.
I think I preferred his design to Warblade's for sure.
Wolverine is the coolest character in comics at this time, so you might as well. So
And
half
Silvestri's,
Wolverine is better than no.
and that's Silvestri's favorite character as well. He's maintained that his favorite character in all of comics is Wolverine.
Yeah.
Another great design. I like the. I'll say this for all of the guff that the image creators get for kind of extraneous stuff. I think Jim Lee might be the best at knowing where to put stuff that, like, if I thought about it, that shit coming off of her back, that doesn't make it goddamn sense. That's pointless and it would only encumber her, but it looks cool as hell.
Well, I think it's inspired from Spiral.
It would be difficult to draw a side view of that, right? But on the next page, you get a side view of.
Yeah. I noticed when her blades are always oriented correctly. It would be so easy for her to have like the side view of the blade in that double page spread, but he doesn't. He gives it like, no, you're seeing the blade, like the edge.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think like that's the sort of thing that I think if you're obsessed with cool, like too obsessed with cool, you wouldn't do. But he's like, no, that's like, how would her fist go? Okay, then that means that the flat of the blade you're not seeing.
I think Zealot's costume also went through a minor redesign too. It's not so provocative later on. Right?
Yeah, she gets pants as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just come on. There's 14-year-old boys who are hard up for woods porn here.
Now this is interesting because Jim Lee's attempting to do a likeness. Now, Taylor, this is the first time you read this comic. Did you know who this is supposed to be?
I suspected, and I had to check. I'm Dan Quayle, right?
Yeah.
Vice President Dan Quayle. The only thing that made me think of it is kind of the context of it. And Dan Quayle was showing up a lot in media at this time. Like Murphy Brown would not shut up about Dan Quayle.
Well, because of his gaffe, right?
Yeah. And a joke in The Simpsons. The USS Dan Quayle. It's a laundry ship.
And we'll cover this another time.
Wetworks.
In a future Image episode.
Yeah, because he's the seventh.
He's
founder,
one of the seven.
And his book did not show up in 1992 or 1993.
Yeah, that's too bad.
It was unfortunately very delayed.
Yeah.
There was a preview for Wetworks.
Family issue.
In Wildcats #2, though.
Mm.
Yeah, he had to go back to the Philippines, and so he wasn't there for like the first two Image founder meetings. I think he showed up on a phone call for one, and then he was made a founder like in absentia. But then in like 1995, they had to like restructure the company for tax purposes. They had to make it, I don't know, they had to declare it some sort of something, and then that's when he decided not to join the company.
Right. Okay.
That's when they gave each other arbitrary titles, right? Like CEO and president and whatnot.
They still have. Like Kirkman is still listed as like CFO or something.
Yeah, you can see in like every single Image comic that comes out, you can see in the opening page, like, yeah, Kirkman is the COO.
Issue 4 of Authority Crisis. It's out now.
Eric Larson, CFO. Todd McFarlane is the president. Yeah, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody make sure to check out, if you haven't yet, make sure to check out Eric's book. It's fucking fantastic. Assorted crisis events. Each issue is a new story. They're all interconnected, but they're one and dones. Written by the great Dennis Camp, who is just killing it right now on at Marvel and DC. But his best work is this book.
Oh, couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm.
So, what month are we
So
at?
holographic.
Yeah, this is more gimmicky than the Shadowhawk cover.
Yeah, so in September, there was Spawn number 4 and Wildcats number 2. And we're just going to quickly look at this because there was a Wetworks preview in the back here.
I'm just going to skip right to it.
Yeah, we'll just like briefly talk about it because, like, yeah, Will's Portasio was a founder, and he was definitely actually. I think he doesn't like to be when people talk about the image style. I don't think he likes because in some ways it's sort of like reductive.
Yeah.
And I think it's like pigeonholing you as a creator, and as a creator, you think you're so much more than just a piece. And I think we have established that there is a cliched idea of what the image style is, but all of these don't necessarily fit together so easily into a box.
Yeah, I'm wondering now if what we respond to when it comes to the image style is actually later books of people thinking what is an image book in the rest of the 90s, like trying to approximate what they think image is. I do like his work though. I think there's he does rendering really well, and
especially shiny surfaces.
And actually I really liked the hatching that he does for shadows. It's a lot more subtle and gradiated than everybody else.
Yeah, and the panel arrangements. Like
yeah,
that's like a trademark of his, right? Like he has a very unique way of arranging panels on a page that his peers don't necessarily have quite like he does. Yeah, he likes doing these like crazy, like not quite. Yeah, how would you describe those panel shapes? Unconventional,
jagged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Will's Portasio wanted to do something military related, and I think he left a lot of the key elements up to Brandon Choi, which Brandon Choi was like a military guy. Now, it's funny that earlier in this episode we mentioned the commandos from Predator.
Yeah.
And we also mentioned T2, and those were the inspirations for Wetworks.
Oh, okay.
They wanted like a commando team like you found in Predator. These kind of like amusing people that riffed off each other, and everybody had their own unique personality. And there was also, do you guys know of Iger Sanction? I've never heard of this, but it was also an inspiration.
I don't know anything about that, but I'll say that Wetworks number 1, when preparing for this episode, was probably the most engaging story of the 7 for sure. And also, I'm gonna say, just Mark Silvestri, Cyberforce, is my favorite of the bunch, just because I'm a huge fan. But I think that Portasio really pulled out all the stops in Wetworks number 1. I think even the colors, I can't remember who colored it, but that's the best looking book of the bunch for sure.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to conclude with, but we're not going to cover that in this episode.
Well, and that was when the Wildstorm coloring department was a little more advanced. I mean, there wasn't really a Wildstorm coloring department at this point.
Okay, so I looked it up. The Iger Sanction. The film is about Jonathan Hemlock, an art history professor, mountain climber, and former assassin once employed by a secret government agency who is blackmailed into returning to his deadly profession for one last movie, starring Clint Eastwood. I'm going to watch the hell out of this movie. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That sounds rad. It's a 1975 movie.
Huh. So just to show you guys, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So, Colin, you read this as a kid? Because I didn't.
I caught this the first couple of issues. I didn't follow too much, but then when Team Seven came out. Then I revisited this. But yeah, this is definitely the best book of the bunch. And then I will say this is a very very close second.
Yeah, so in October we had Cyberforce #1, Spawn #5, Youngblood #3, Brigade #2, Savage Dragon #2, and Shadowhawk #2. There was a lot of Image comics out in October. And by contrast, in November there was just Spawn #6.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow. Yeah, because as I understand it, to some degree, McFarlane had kind of been stockpiling stuff. Like the time between him
Yeah.
ending Marvel and starting at Image was a lot longer than everybody else.
He was retired from comics for like a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, like he was starting a card company and everything,
So
and he had the
actually,
time to like build out a story.
I do. Before we actually go into Cyberforce, I want to compare. So these three guys were the three team guys that were behind the X books for Marvel during the early. Where is the line? There we go. During the early '90s.
Right.
So I want to compare the covers at least. So with Silvestri, he goes full figure. Liefeld goes full figure, and Lee tries to do a little bit more of
A
montage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Could you remind me what Silvestri had been working on at Marvel before that?
Wolverine and Uncanny X-Men. Uncanny X-Men,
Oh,
then Wolverine. Yeah.
oh, okay.
And that was one of the reasons why Cyberforce came out so much later than all the other ones, is because he wanted to fulfill his obligations. He didn't want to just up and leave. Like, he had agreed to be on Wolverine for X amount of issues.
Okay. Yeah, it's hmm. It's
Oh, this
interesting
got
to
the
see
coupon in it too. Yeah.
the difference
Oh yeah.
between them because yeah, it's Lee is trying to vary stuff, but in terms of like what you need on a cover, I think like full figures is probably gonna grab somebody first issue.
Yeah, and so there was a bit of a pecking order at Image. It was said that, like, and by based on like fan reaction, and I don't know how Wizard, you know,
Mm.
played things. It was always Todd McFarlane was top dog. Jim Lee was #2. Rob Liefeld was #3, and then it was sort of nebulous after that. However, all of the creators, I think, universally accepted that Silvestri was the best artist.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, Rob Liefeld did also say that Patricio was a master at anatomy, like drawing, muscular figures and that sort of
That
thing.
I
But
agree with.
Silvestri
Yeah.
was the artist of the artists.
Yeah.
When
I
I was
do.
younger, how it was always described to me, which always stuck with me, was when Silvestri draws somebody in a chair, their body conforms to that chair in a very naturalistic way, which is
Mm,
incredibly hard to do. And
yeah.
that was their way of saying he was the best. Like, he just had such a naturalistic approach to drawing the human figure.
Yeah.
Asses are soft. They spread out when you sit on them.
Yeah.
And
And
Silvestri knew it.
I wanted to also say that, so of the seven, and in this case, we've looked at, well, every book except Wetworks, which kind of doesn't count anyway. But four of the artists are kind of like doing what they do best in their debut issues, whereas you'll take Valentino, who's actually trying different or new things.
Hmm.
So Silvestri off the bat, he was his storytelling, his women, his character design, the action, everything, like even the double page spreads that are to come in this, it's all like just it's big budget action Silvestri compared to his Wolverine work. His Wolverine
Oh,
work had a lot more. Like there were a lot of shots of Wolverine depressed, or he's going through anguish and stuff like that. Those are the shots that stick with me. But in this, it's all the action.
And
yeah, it
it
is.
should be noted, though, that publicly he said that he doesn't like the work that he was producing at this time very much.
Really?
Yeah, he said that he was trying to be Jim Lee,
I get
and
that. Yeah.
there's already a Jim Lee, which so Colin, you're a big Silvestri fan. you can see a massive difference between this work and say his like Uncanny X-Men work, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. His Uncanny X-Men work, you could even like lead influences back to John Buscema and Joe Kubert. Like you can see it in that work, but here he's definitely trying to kind of he's in competition with Jim Lee. Like to him, Jim
And
Lee is the biggest artist. So, you know,
yeah, and I like that you brought that up because that early stuff is very Buscema Silvestri, and this is Jim Lee Silvestri.
yeah.
Do you think we can in the future do a 4 style phases of Mark Silvestri? Is there 4? Maybe 3? What would you say?
I haven't given thought to the stages of his career, but we will start with Conan, King Conan.
Well, but it's just interesting because there's the Buscema years, there's the Lee years, which he's not a big fan of, and then there's his modern years, which we bring up a lot. Artists that get better with age, which is contrary to how it works. Most artists have a peak and then go downhill.
Yeah.
Silvestri is one of those. The best work he's ever produced was this year or
The last thing he did was the best thing he
Yes.
did. Yeah, always.
Oh,
No, I do agree with that. And I haven't really given too much thought into how I want to tackle Silvestri. I think it's supposed to fall on me amongst us, but we will be starting with King Conan, and you will see a clear progression, a clear shift.
And a
in
very
every-
big Buscema
Yeah.
influence.
I'm seeing it now. I just found an image from Uncanny X-Men 260. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah, he really was. That's a
And it
huge...
doesn't look like this stuff, right?
No.
No, but you can still kind of like I can see how you get from one to the other. But I get what you mean, or what he means about like that feels very Jim Lee, right?
Yeah. But actually, I wanted to. So now that we're here, I mean, this is the shot of the book. But Joe Chiodo was the color artist, and he went on to do a lot of Wildstorm stuff too. I mean, he was all over the place all through the 80s and 90s. But Joe Chiodo, I think, is one of the best colorists at the time, along with Steve Olive. We don't really mention him much, but now that this is a prime example of it, I want to bring him up.
And we should say that Wildstorm doesn't exist right now. At this point, Top Cow doesn't exist. It's Homage Studios is
That's right.
Jim Lee, Scott Williams, Will Spertasio, and when Image formed, they basically invited Silvestri to come over. And so Silvestri was in studio with these guys. And this was, is there an Homage logo in here? Maybe not. Yeah, I guess
Hang
not.
on. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't think so. Eventually, like Wildcats and Cyberforce are from Homage Comics. But then I think there's a little bit of a breakup, and then they divide up into Wildstorm and then Top Cow. And it is interesting because Scott Williams ends up inking Silvestri. And something that we haven't mentioned is that a big part of the Image style, a big part of the 90s style is Scott Williams.
Yeah.
Which I couldn't find an inker in the credits here. I think Mark Silvestri inked this himself, but there's also a thank you to Homage Studios. Thank you to Homage Studios, and then he lists. Oh, interesting. They also have Carl Alstetter, which was Jim Lee's assistant. Carl Alstetter did a lot of like tech stuff and a lot of backgrounds for Jim Lee. So I couldn't. There's no inker credit, but I did find a couple of moments that looked like they were inked by Scott Williams, just probably helping out, or maybe it was Silvestri imitating how Scott Williams would ink.
It'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, like
so. Can you comment
page.
then? Well, hang on. Can you comment that he was working closely with Joe Chiodo, like in person, if they were sharing studio space? Was Joe Chiodo part of that?
Joe Chiodo was a Wildstorm guy eventually, so I guess he was part of the Homage Studio crew. Possibly, although he wasn't named in the Homage Studios thank you, but eventually Joe Chiodo becomes a Wildstorm guy, so he had to be close by. So if you look at Impact's leg, you have a little bit of the zigzag type rendering that Scott Williams is known for.
The kind of feathering and stuff. I actually really liked the design of Impact. That was it feels Kirby-esque.
You know, of the three bruisers, I would the tank characters of between Youngblood, Wildcats, and Cyberforce. I think Badrock was a pretty cool design.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got a good. I love that he makes his head so small
Yeah.
that it just adds to how massive he is. Um, Actually, could you go back a few pages because I do like the way he's done um, the kid that's working on the yeah.
His kids
Uh,
look like kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. His kids look like kids, which is difficult to do. This is kind of tangential, but I remember walking through the. I may have mentioned this before, but walking through the Vatican, and there's babies all over the place because of charity and shit
Yeah.
or whatever, right? And you can tell which of these artists are like actual fathers with children, and which of them are like single losers because the losers have just made like tiny humans, tiny men, but the actual fathers have like no, their heads are like enormous. They're like a third of their body size, and that's what you get here, right? He's doing
Mm.
like this kid is what 4.5 heads tall. It's the sort of thing, and he's like his eyes are proportionate. They should be larger.
Mm.
It's a great design to sell like instantly. Oh yeah, that's a kid even with the reveal later on.
So this is good cartooning here. How he draws these figures.
Yeah.
This is what I loved about his Uncanny X-Men stuff. Was he had a good foundation of cartooning, which I'm not as big a fan of this era of Silvestri because he kind of like pushes that cartooning back a bit to be, I guess, more like Jim Lee. And I really love when he embraced that aspect more, which I think he will do eventually.
I like this
Yeah.
turnaround here
Nice
that
character
happened.
design for Cyblade there too. I mean,
I like the
again, a lot of the staples in the suit. You know,
yeah.
the metal
I like
ribbing.
the I like the turnaround though. Like he's going down the stairs and you see through her and then so that you know that when it turns who you're talking about. But then having him kind of right next to her, man, this feels a lot more elegant than maybe not that it should, but than it appears at first glance. I think this is like, oh yeah, that is how you do a good turnaround reveal of wait, who's
Yeah,
there? Oh, that. Oh, what's happening? He's still pointing down. It's like keeping the geography of everything still like cemented.
Yeah.
yeah,
There was
very
a
dynamic.
uh, there's a story about how when Silvestri got King Conan, I can't remember the exact context. It was either him before he got it or when he got it, but his editor wanted him to ink one of his own comics. He wanted him to ink it because the pages that he was turning in, he was cheating a lot. And we will see in the King Conan run, there was just some, he would do a lot of silhouettes, shadow silhouettes, and just use different rendering techniques that the inker would not know what to do with. Like I've had Liam Sharp look at some of my work like way back in my 20s, and he's like, I wouldn't know what to do with that. I wouldn't know what to do with that. As an inker, I
Yeah,
wouldn't know what to do with that. And so Silvestri's editor on Conan made him ink one of his own comics, and then he said that he had a newfound respect for
Oh,
inkers and how to draw for the inker a little bit more.
oh,
You know,
that's interesting.
knowing what
Yeah,
the inker is capable of.
that's cool.
So
if we go back a couple of pages, I did notice something that like it's the assassination that right there. So that's an assassination attempt, and it's I read all of these comics in the span of a week, and so it's tough not to compare because Rob Liefeld drew an assassination attempt similar to this in Youngblood #1, and this example is probably more how a trained illustrator would approach uh, drawing it.
Yeah, this is straight out of Mission Impossible 5.
yeah, compared
Yeah.
to
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, and not to take much away from Liefeld because Liefeld's appeal is that he,
he's
as I
awesome.
said earlier, he draws like the best
Yeah.
artist in your high school class, and that's the point. Is like one is exciting in one way, and the other excites my illustrator brain, my more
Mhm.
mature side a little more because yeah, again, it's just a little more of a mature approach.
And it leads you through that page better too. like the assassin pointing where you're supposed to be, not only looking in that panel, but also to the next panel that collapses into the next one.
Yeah.
The other thing is every character has one key shot that kind of defines them for
Yeah.
the reader, right? Like this is the guy with four arms, and this is the guy who's like Wolverine, and this is the girl who runs fast, you know, and it has some display of their powers. Impact, of course, right?
I was a bit confused though about Velocity. She's a speedster, but she's also running slowly through alleys or being caught
Well,
by or
Ripclaw comments that she's running like a deer, right?
Okay.
So he kind of, and it helps you visualize because deers are very elegant. They're
Yeah.
they're very fast, right? Definitely like 10 times faster than a human.
Okay, but we're not talking like the Flash.
Not like the Flash, not like
Okay.
like blink and you'll miss her kind of thing. It's like you actually see her run across the alley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because I thought, the
Yeah.
description of the deer was kind of more poetic. I didn't realize it was an actual description of how she moves, but
Yeah.
that makes a lot more sense. That's
because. Sorry if I can. Now we're getting into the weeds because I was a big Top Cow guy back in the day. But her powers she's not Flash fast, but she is because she's cybernetically enhanced, mutant. It's still kind of rooted in reality a bit. She can't like go back in time. She runs so fast to go back in time, but she is fast.
She's just faster than every human that's ever lived. Okay,
right.
Great introduction of the standout character of this
it's
comic,
Ripclaw.
right? Yeah, like he's
Ripclaw,
yeah.
I mean, they all ended up getting their own miniseries too, like Cyblade and Ballistic and the rest. But I think Ripclaw was the one who's. I think he's even the only one that has survived modern day Top Cow. I haven't read any modern Top Cow books, but I think Ripclaw is still in the game.
Yeah, he's following the superhero team archetype to a T as well, right?
Yeah.
So did you guys know that this was this was supposed to like him pitching an X-Men book, and then it didn't work out, so he just because he's not even hiding the mutants aspect, and there is sort of a racism allegory during that assassination attempt. But yeah, he was at like a Marvel summit right before Image formed, and he pitched this as like cybernetically enhanced mutants in a team, and they turned it down. And then it's like he was approached to do Image like a couple days later, and he just used it there. But it is interesting that he puts the word mutants in here. So,
well, I think they were all. I mean, besides, I mean, they had all agreed that it would be a shared universe, and they kind of kick around Youngblood between the books, but they were all doing their own thing.
Yeah,
like I think
Super Freaks and Youngbloods and mutants. And...
yeah.
Well, yeah, because they kind of take place in the same universe, but not necessarily the same. It's not like the Marvel universe where it's New York concentrated, right? Like this is what, Washington?
Oh, is it?
I can't.
All New York except Savage Dragon was Chicago. I thought there was some big.
Well, Youngblood is also is definitely Washington D.C.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the home team is. The away team could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Follow for their further adventures. But yeah, like you could see the geographical space between them being, especially in the States where they still have regional names for things. Like in Texas, all what we would call pop is just called Coke.
Yeah.
Well, we in Canada call it pop, but in the States they call it soda.
In some places, in other places they call it pop, and sometimes they call it tonic. Like they have regional differences that we just don't have. I love her design.
Yeah.
This is
very cool.
the comicsist as shit design for a character.
Which we get a nice little anchor image on the next page of her.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Lalandra of the book in a way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's what I'm responding to, but it feels more cohesive. Like she's like, is she a alien pharaoh? What's going on here? Tell me more. Like
Mm.
it's just very intriguing.
Yeah, very cool.
More
Mhm.
kids, more
I
flashbacks of younger characters.
I do appreciate when they do this sort of thing too for memories, like the jagged edges and the kind of tumbling cascade of
Mm.
panels. It lets you know, it gives you the feel of, okay, this is different than the structure of the next
You
page.
know, one thing I want to quickly bring up too is when it comes to flashbacks or future, what do you call future flashback? You know what I'm
Flash
saying?
Flash
forward.
forward.
Flash forward, exactly. Uh, Jim Lee likes to do a little bit. He doesn't do the jagged thing. He does more of like kind of like bloated squares or
Yeah, like
or shardy crystals, and
irregular. Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
and
that's a
here
good call.
too. But there, he doesn't do any scratch. There's no scratch. It's all just kind of
True.
still
Yeah,
one bold outline.
yeah,
Whereas here you got the scratch.
good catch. Yeah, that's it's interesting to see how you, because I've done stuff in that, like, yeah, how do I show this as a memory? You know what? I'm going to give it a soft white paint border, so it
Mm.
just kind of like washes out. I don't know how successful it is, but it, at the very least, it delineates something, some difference.
Yeah, and that's what you got to do. It's got to be in there in the ink somehow. You
Hmm.
can't fully rely on the colorist.
Yeah.
A lot of close-up shots of Velocity's face all throughout.
I get why she's got a cool design. I love
Really cool design. Yeah.
the eyebrow, because like you could easily drop that eyebrow out, but you would lose the ability to have her emote further if you
Mm.
did. And I think it's a good choice to have it carved out.
And going back to the cartooning, if you go back 2 pages, you see those like plushy animals. Or yeah, we're just right there. Yeah, this is somebody who's embracing cartooning, which you don't see
Mm.
in any of the other image
That's a
founders.
good point. Yeah.
Mm.
And I appreciate it so much more. Like I think he nowadays is my favorite of the bunch. Even though as a kid I was a Jim Lee guy.
Yeah. Really nice splash page to have a cliffhanger on. He's the king of doing this, like wreckage, like all the shrapneling everywhere and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And he's
Yeah,
blown it out too to give it a feel of like there's still a light source.
Yeah.
and this is how Olivier Coipel approaches wreckage. I
Less
find.
is more.
Yeah.
Well, just the way he does the shadowing to delineate the amount of wreckage rather than doing a ton of detail work.
Yeah. Yeah. He solely relies on shadows.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
yeah, I guess Colin, you read this comic 1,000 times as a kid as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Really nice
okay.
double
Okay.
wraparound cover.
Yeah, very
But
cool.
yeah. So you guys do some art this week or no?
I sure did.
I'm too busy drawing assorted crisis events.
All
But
right, we
yeah,
get it.
let's.
You're a successful artist, professional, successful artist. God,
Yeah.
I'm jealous of you
It's
guys.
like
I wish I had time to do these sketching.
so you have
But like,
cancer. We get it. All right.
yeah, Taylor, let's see what you got.
that snuck up on me. Holy shit. Uh, all right. Yes. So, actually, you know what? First, I'm going to show the process of that I wasn't actually that happy with. Right here, we've got just kind of a. I don't know. It's just kind of boring, you know. It's like
So how much of these? How many sketches do you do before you do the full thing?
I did 7 different poses, and
Oh,
I
okay.
just kind of wanted, what I wanted to do with this was I wanted to take, like, Shaft is a good idea. I really think Shaft is a great idea, but I don't think it's executed particularly well in terms of like archery can look cool. So what I was concentrating on was, well, what does an archer actually look like? But I found this just kind of, I don't know, boring. Like I put a lot of detail into this bow with an thinking, all right, well, if it's a modern bow but it's still electromagnetic,
Mm.
what does it kind of look like? But what I ended up coming up with is this.
Oh,
Fuck,
yeah,
I
way more
love
dynamic.
those colors, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been playing with colors and trying to make him pop as much as possible. It is more dynamic. I think the head is too large. Like it's far too large. But in terms of how archery occurs, I think this is more dynamic and grounded in how the actual act is conveyed.
Although I'll say, like, it's clear you took the tape off for the border. Now that the tape is off, I would scratch in a little bit of those arrows popping out.
Oh, good call. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that would be cool.
Or maybe there's not enough room, but maybe you could do a little bit. That would
Yeah.
create that, breaking the panel border kind of
Yeah, that's a
thing.
good
Where,
idea. That's a good idea.
All right.
but yeah, very cool.
Thanks.
And
So
Colin, did you end up doing any art?
yeah, so at the time of us recording this episode, it's not finished, but what we're going to show is the finished. It's of it's the finished piece
Oh
of
wow, that's a
Spawn.
big sketchbook you got.
Yeah, I just dug this one up, and it was pretty much 3/4 empty. So I decided to, just carry on in this one. It's Spawn holding a, assault rifle and a giant fucking sword.
Nice.
I was inspired by Travis Charis has been doing these single figure commissions with zero background, and they're really realized. Like he fully painted and everything. So that's kind of my intention with this. I'm going to fully ink it, and I think I'm only going to use green for the eyes and red for the cape, and I'm going to leave everything else. And it's going to be hatch heavy too, I think. And yeah, one thing that I want to actually ask you guys is, like, taking on sort of like a project. What I would like to do is a figure or a character from any work that we're going to look at going forward. I know it's very artist based, but like whatever book that we're covering that week, I'll just do a figure for that. I think it's attainable for me to keep up that pace. But for a character like Spawn, so Spawn was my be all and end all amongst all the other books back in the day. And in texture wise, like I really want to go for the bony skull texture. But when you sign up to do a texture like that, you have to make it consistent across the board. Same with his body, the chains, the cape, and everything has to have texture if you have one thing. I was looking for an example of how I could get away with not going that route, but I till this day I can't find anything. So do you guys ever bite off more than you can chew wanting to do something like this?
Of course.
Like, oh no, like I did the whole brick wall, so now all the bricks are defined, and now the character looks out of place because he's so simple. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
I do it all the fucking time.
yeah.
Although I think your influence for these is Travis Charest, and I think he can pull that off with like calculated detail in certain areas, and then everywhere else kind of smooth. So he's probably your guy to look at for that, which you already are.
Tell me once and for all, is it Charist or Charest?
Oh, I always pronounced it Charest.
I did too, but then I think I heard Mark Miller call him Charist.
Well, maybe Mark Millar was wrong. Was that during the interview with him?
Mark Millar. Yeah,
Mark
during
Millar.
the interview.
I always called him that because it's supposed to be Miller.
It's Miller,
but,
yeah.
You can't get any names right.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? I always thought it was Charest, but it's something to look up.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have. This is not to step on either of our dicks, but so at the end of last episode, Eric gave all of you aspiring artists out there the advice of like take this, like, do anatomy like you're hitting the gym. So behold, arm day, face
Nice.
day, torso day, back day, more back day, hand day, and then I realized I shouldn't be using inks because leg day.
Nice.
This paper, holy shit, does it bleed? But
So is this is you're going to keep this up for like a little while.
My intent is to fill this book.
Right on.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I mean, you will definitely become a better artist if you keep that up, and I recommend anybody who wants to become a better artist do this.
Half hour a day.
Treat it like going to the gym.
Yep, is what I'm hitting. I'm just doing half an hour a day. Pinterest is great for just arms reference.
Yeah. So I mean, after like 7 days, you feel like, you know, do you feel the improvement already? Like, obviously, it's a long-term thing. But...
No, I don't think I feel the improvement yet. Just because I'm anticipating improvement after, like, per subject matter. Like I need to throw feet in there, and as per your suggestion, like, draw an arm, flip the page, try and redraw that arm the exact same way. You know, like little.
That's what I did when.
Like this is week 1, so we'll see. But how it develops. But I mean, there is no such thing as non-improvement on grinding. You know, like even if it's difficult, as long as you are consistent, you have to improve. You can't get worse.
Yeah.
You put in the work and it'll pay off.
Yeah.
But the price must be paid.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes. The price must be paid. I thought I got away with, I thought I had already covered this in art school, but you develop, you learn more, and you see, you know what, this didn't give me like quite the roundness that I needed,
And everybody could, like, I wish I should be doing this as well. I should be doing life drawing on a regular basis. Every artist should be doing it, because, we were talking about Mark Silvestri being, always getting better. And that is because he's always learning and always trying to get better. So yeah, it's very cool to see that you're doing that.
Yeah.
I'm envious. I wish I could.
But I am going to need
around the time to
remind me to be like, did you do them this week?
Well, yeah, I guess every week you're going to show off a week's worth of stuff.
I mean, if you want to see it, sure, it's going to get boring because it's just dismembered body parts. But if you want to see them, I will show them.
This is your vlog of becoming a better artist.
Yep, that's true. Yeah.
Mine too. Hopefully, once I get consistent. Knock wood.
I mean, the consistency seems to be just the key, especially after finishing my most recent project. I haven't really had like a thing to grab onto. Like, there's small things here and there that I'm working on, but I don't know. Like, this has also given me something to, like, no, I gotta hit this. I gotta like at least once a day. I gotta hit this.
Hey, again, the price must be paid. Mm-hmm. And on that note, we should close it out. So thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.